Carney touts AI for all, but gets a cool reception on Parliament Hill. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
All the news you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
The wrapping has been pulled off the country's new AI strategy, but what's inside is leaving some with questions. For example, on safety. The Carney government's much-hyped plan for artificial intelligence is scant on details about how it will legislate AI safety, for example, access for children, and protecting personal data. Details about AI safety are coming later, according to the government. The Prime Minister instead emphasized his push for digital sovereignty, building and running AI infrastructure in Canada, or what he calls the sovereign cloud.
Where is the government of Canada going to hold your data and our national security data? It's going to hold it in Canada. So that's the most extreme version of sovereign cloud, and with the most trusted providers. But also, where do Canadian companies and where are Canadians most comfortable having their data and them having those options? So we view this as fundamental and straightforward. Does that mean there aren't important roles in the Canadian AI ecosystem for U.S.-based AI companies? No. Of course, there are important roles today, and we benefit. Canadians benefit from them. But we will make the laws here, and we will also grow our capacity here, our physical compute capacity, if I can put it that way, so that we can protect Canadians.
The federal justice minister, Sean Fraser, he suggested regulation will be coming. Amid speculation, the government is also looking at new rules for social media platforms.
Suffice it to say, when we develop policies, the interest of Canadians is what determines the decisions that we're going to take. The well-being of communities in this country demands, in my view, that we adopt a certain level of sovereignty to artificial intelligence as this new sector emerges. We want to make sure that we have an opportunity to be in control of our own destiny, and to the extent that sovereignty and AI is going to be part of that conversation, know that it's going to be the interests of Canadians, not exclusively potential trade irritants. It's going to dictate Canadian policy.
Opposition reaction to the AI plan is not enthusiastic. The Conservative Party's deputy leader, Melissa Lantsman, criticized the lack of detail around protecting Canadians from the potential harm that could come from AI.
There's very little details here on privacy, on safety, on security, on how to keep kids safe. This is a government that's hung its hat for the last year. And the reason that you see this strategy today is not because they were ready with some grand plan on AI. It's because the document leaked and they were forced to announce something. Again, there is no details in this strategy about privacy, about security, about how to keep Canadians safe. We look forward to seeing those details, but if the government's past behavior or the government's future behavior is predicated on its past behavior, we're not optimistic about security and privacy here.
Lantsman called the new AI plan ambitious, but added MPs will need to see more details.
AI is here. AI adoption is here. AI is in I think lots of daily activities that Canadians partake in. I certainly use it in my day-to-day life. What we're talking about here is a strategy without details for adoption after 9 years of getting nowhere with it.
The criticism was much harsher from the New Democrats. NDP MP Don Davies slammed the plan, called it reckless, said it echoes the language of the big tech billionaires.
It leaves Canadians dangerously exposed. You know, it's entitled AI for all. It's more like all in for AI. We know that this technology can produce benefits for Canadians, but it needs effective regulation and strong guardrails. Look, we know that AI is driving mass surveillance, it's facilitating fraud, it's threatening jobs. It consumes huge amounts of water and energy, and it targets the most vulnerable members in our society, including children and seniors. And yet, The Liberals rushed through a superficial and quick consultation, and now they're mouthing the lines of tech billionaires.
The NDP is calling on the government to scrap this AI plan. Don Davies says it just doesn't address Canadians' concerns.
I know young people are anxious about AI, small business is anxious about AI, communities are anxious about AI. The only people who seem to be truly excited about it are corporate CEOs. And that's because, speaking to the jobs element, they know that the mass adoption of AI is to replace human labor. And so, of course, CEOs are all in on it, but unions and people who are concerned about the impact this is going to have on jobs and workers across this country are very nervous. There's nothing in the strategy that will address that.
The government claims AI will be a job creator and will create 250,000 jobs in Canada by the year 2031 as AI becomes more widely adopted. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow, and this is News Radio.
You have questions
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
on News Radio.
He's our expert in communications, crisis communications, political communications, branding, and leadership. Barry McLoughlin is the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Barry teaches at the University of Ottawa's Professional Development Institute and at Cape Breton University's Shannon School of Business. And in fact, Barry and his partner Laura Peck will be conducting a one-day certificate course at the Shannon School of Business at Cape Breton University. That's Saturday, June 27th. It's available in person. It's also streaming across Canada. It's called Get Your Message Across in an Age of Uncertainty, and registrations are now open for that. Welcome back, Barry McLoughlin.
That's wonderful, Rob. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, Barry. It's great to hear from you. Leadership is going to be a theme for us. Today, I want to ask you about Prime Minister Mark Carney's leadership style. Because, and if you're the Prime Minister, you don't want this sort of stuff in the news media, in the political news media. MPs who are disgruntled enough to whisper things into the ears of journalists. For example, in a report in the Toronto Star this week, Althea Raj writes about Mark Carney and how he's managing his caucus, if you can call it that. Quote, he does not want to be challenged. Carney lashing out at certain members when he doesn't like the message they deliver, including Nova Scotia MP Jaime Baptiste, who's from Cape Breton. He's a Mi'kmaq, raising concerns over negative perceptions of the government's changes to the Indian Act, receiving a stunning rebuke. Winnipeg MP Dan Olofsson, physician, being told not to come to the Prime Minister with his concerns over the lack of federal response to Alberta's two-tiered healthcare bill, Bill 11. Laval MP Angelo Iacono, who wanted the Prime Minister to visit his riding, was met with Carney insisting, I've been to Laval already. Quote, he yells. Quote, he punches down at caucus all the time. Is this Prime Minister a bully? Is he a big meanie? What do you think of this sort of leadership style?
Well, it is upsetting, I think, disturbing to hear that he has done that. I've known him, off and on, I guess, over 20, 25 years. And it's certainly nothing I've ever witnessed, seen, or heard directly. So I'm very surprised that I think these caucus meetings, first of all, I mean, they're supposed to be 100%, what happens in caucus stays in caucus. And so instead, by the way, I'm out at a golf course, if you're wondering that noise there. It's supposed to be confidential. However, I think he's got to learn a lesson. Paul Martin, a lot of stories about Paul Martin, yelling at his staff, and we had an opportunity, Laura and I, to speak with him privately about it. And we said, hey, look, that's, you have to realize when you yell at staff, that is something they never forget for the rest of their life, that a prime minister has yelled at them. That can really be much more harmful. He looked at us and he said, well, give as good as I get. I said, well, it's different. When the prime minister yells at you, it's not the same thing as an ordinary citizen yelling at you. So we've had that before. I'm not saying he's the only one, and I'm sure that 99% of the time he's a wonderful guy. But I think that this is a cautionary note. That shouldn't be happening again. Now that it's out there, oh my gosh, that cannot be a repetitive thing. And there's no need for it. When he leans over and looks right at you, you kind of know, okay, I'm on the hot seat here. I don't need the yelling as well. You don't need that. I think he has to realize that in power and leadership, don't go to the full extent. You almost never need to do that. Subtlety, less is more in leadership.
Yeah. And I mean, it's out in the open now. As you say, these are behind closed doors, lips sealed, loose lips, sink ships kind of meetings, Barry. There are names attached here. These are 3 MPs who are out. I wonder if there will be consequences for these 3 MPs if they're the leakers. But how do you manage something like this?
Well, that's right. I think you just have
to if this is the way he is wired, if he's a serious man of serious purpose and he sees these issues as being whatever, inconsequential, maybe beneath him, maybe not in keeping what he sees as his big strategy for Canada. This goes to caucus management and the ability to keep everyone on the same page and rowing in the same direction.
Well, it's certainly that. I would also say this, that the problem with this as a leader is that if your goal is to have everybody bow their head and go, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, every time you open your mouth, you're not really getting the proper input you need to get, especially from caucus members who are right there on the ground, who know what's going on in their riding. The Prime Minister does not know what's going on in these ridings. How could he possibly? So it is something that he has to realize it's counterproductive, let alone the personal impact of it, but it is counterproductive to be squashing genuine disagreement. That's a very important part. If they're all nodding their head in unison like one of those dolls, then you don't have much of a caucus that you'd respect. You wouldn't respect them. He is a tough leader. There's no question about that. I have seen, his abilities up fairly close. And wow, he is very, very, a very focused leader, one who has high expectations of himself and others. And I'll bet you he does get frustrated when he hears things that don't quite meet that expectation. But he has to realize, I have to kind of let that happen. The process is almost as important as the substance. They got to feel, and I think the master of caucus meetings was Brian Mulroney, by all accounts. They felt free to say directly to him, without staff interfering or anything else, what they thought, what they felt, what they needed. And that was number one reason that they really did love him as a leader. It was a style of leadership that, I'm not sure we see all that much of it. Yeah. And we're a long way from that when you hear that behavior.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to read too much into it. We had a poll this week that said they're at 50% in the polls. So that will have a lot of people
absolutely
falling in line. I think if you're at 50% in the polls, that helps a lot. Okay, when we come back with Barry McLoughlin, let's ask him about what he thinks about everything that's been happening at CBS News and that soap opera on CBS. No, not daytime, 60 Minutes. The firing of Scott Pelley when we come back. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Barry McLoughlin with us, the president of TLC Transformational Leadership Consultancies, here every Friday. What is your reaction to the drama that's playing out at CBS News, the firing of the longtime 60 Minutes correspondent Scott Pelley? Barry?
Well, first of all, I think, you only come in there and call down from high the producer of all news, the executive producer of 60 Minutes. You call them down from on high when you're prepared to quit. You make a decision. Am I going out with a whimper or a bang? And he chose to go out with a bang. He chose to make it clear why he's doing this. He made it clear his denunciation of the whole philosophy behind the changes at 60 Minutes, and he was having none of it. and he was really speaking on behalf of the crew, the cast, and everything. So I think it was you could say it's courageous. It was on that one sense, but you'd only do that if you're heading for the door. They always say, you want to even threaten anything like that to a boss, you will be fired. He knew he was going to be fired. That was no surprise to him. In fact, his comeback was even better than that. He hit the theme amphora, I think it's known as a technique. You take the major theme, rudeness, which is what the executive producer said to him in a letter as to why he was firing him. And he said, I'll tell you what's rude, what you've been doing to this, and he hammered him on the word rude. And really, that was his swan song. He is the most respected person at 60 Minutes. It'd be very hard in the wake of Scott Pelley for the Leslie Stalls and a few others that want to stay on. I mean, I think it kind of says something if you stay there. So I think he's kind of forced the whole thing to really change by definition, and probably not in the way that he wants it to change either.
I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's easy to be, make yourself a martyr to the cause, as righteous as the cause may be, when you make $5 million a year. I mean, come on.
Yeah, there's no pity
but I
party
do wonder, I do wonder, to your point, I mean, Anderson Cooper has already announced he's leaving. Does he?
Yeah.
By the sounds of it, doesn't want to come back. What's next for the others who remain? There are three cores. I think there are only three left.
Yeah.
Leslie Stahl would be the best known of them all, I suppose.
Yeah, and she is such a signature piece of that, part of that whole story. I remember when 60 Minutes came on the air. It has been an amazing transformational program that there's no program out there that even matches it. So I see member, and I think she has to make a decision. Am I going to stay on? By staying on, am I leaving a message by staying on? So I think that maybe the rest will go. I'm just, assuming that could be. And in the end, Scott Pelley stood up for what he believed in, knew that he was going to be turfed, and indeed he was. So it can be tough, that's for sure. I admire his courage on one level. Of course I do. But on the other level, you have to realize when you do something, it has other consequences that are actually beyond yourself as well. You got to keep that in mind.
Right. All right, Barry, keep it in the short grass, okay, today out there?
I'll try.
Good luck.
I'll try.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
From a golf course somewhere in Ottawa today, that is Barry McLoughlin, the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Tom Korski is coming up next, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
He has been minding Ottawa's business all week long, and he's back with us. Tom Korski is the managing editor of Blacklock's Reporter. Welcome back, Tom.
Thank you,
Good to hear
Rob.
from you.
My pleasure.
How big is the deficit, Tom?
Well, last year it was supposed to be down almost $12 billion off the federal estimates, and that was untrue. It is now, this is the 2025 deficit, over $78 billion. By the way, outside of pandemic times, that's the biggest deficit in Canadian history. Any province, territory, city, you name it. No parliament's ever come in with that deficit outside of pandemic times. And Cabinet, there's no way to make this pretty, Rob. They misled the public in their budget, which was just weeks ago, when they said it was several billion lower. This is the budget office reporting. This is unheard of, Rob. This is, you're down to, every time you hit the bottom of the barrel, it's a false bottom and there's a new bottom. You can't get any lower than this. They're making up figures now.
Okay. So, again, he predicted, this is Francois-Philippe Champagne, he's the Minister of Finance, predicted that this year's deficit would be $65.4 billion. But the true figure, again, from the budget office, is not a political figure. It's an officer of the Parliament. It reports to Parliament. The true figure, just shy of $72 billion. Just shy of $72 billion. What about things like fiscal anchors, Tom, and confidence in the Department of Finance to actually meet what it is saying about current estimates for the budget?
Fiscal anchors is doublespeak for people who can't balance a budget. We want to use plain language, especially in the absence of cabinet not using plain language. Fiscal anchors, when you can't balance a budget, you say, okay, I'm going to stop drinking on Fridays. So help me. I really, really mean it this time, honey. And then their drinking pledge was, we are going to lower our deficit to GDP, gross domestic product, economic output, lower that ratio year over year. And the Budget Office hilariously rates their chance of success at 1% over the next 5 years, a 99% chance of failure. I guess they didn't want to make it 100 because you never know. Miracles, Rob. This is sad. This is a G7 financial report. It's unbelievable.
Recession, technical recession, big topic in Ottawa this week. On that front, this is interesting. What percentage of residents in the Greater Toronto area are now using food banks? Some information on that.
1 in 10. 1 in 10 says the distributor. It's called the Daily Bread Network, largest food bank operator in the country, naturally, in a municipal area the size of the Greater Toronto area. Their chief executive officers testifying in the Commons Finance Committee. So this is not a gotcha moment. He's testifying before a parliamentary committee, and what did he say? He said that the statistics are staggering, his word, not mine. They are now up to over 4 million meals a year. I quote him accurately, we now feed 1 in 10 Torontonians, end of quote. Can you imagine, Rob, a tenth of any city outside of post-war Berlin, where a tenth of the residents are relying on charity to eat every night? It's extraordinary.
Yeah. I mean, it's like something out of the Depression, R.B. Bennett in the Depression era. It's really quite something. This is, and it's staggering how fast it has occurred. CEO Neil Hetherington, again, testifying at the Commons Finance Committee. It took us 28 years to get to 1 million visits, 1 million people visiting the Daily Bread Food Bank Network. 28 years to get to 1 million visits, then 2 years to get to 2 million, 1 year to get to 3 million, and now it's 4.1 million visits. 1 in 10 people in the Greater Toronto area. Stunning. And it's also revealing and somewhat depressing who is going to food banks, who has to go to food banks now.
That's compelling. That's absolutely compelling. The demographic profiles are startling. So he is describing a typical food bank user. This is not a picture of abject poverty. These are just typical food bank users in Toronto. Most of them have a post-secondary education, 60%. Half of them work full-time. What did Hetherington say?
Work full-time.
They've done everything right, went to school, got a job, end of quote. And they're still lining up for free craft dinner. Something has gone awry, Rob.
Okay. Tom Korski with us, managing editor, Blacklock's reporter. Canada Post. There was this idea, well, we have all of these rural post offices. We don't need all of these rural post offices. We could turn some of them into community centers, or what they were called community hubs. What's the plan for that now?
It was an experiment. It started 5 years ago in High Prairie, Alberta. It expanded to 4 pilot projects from Alberta to Nova Scotia. And the Canada Post Corporation managers, in a rather cryptic report table in the House of Commons, suggest it didn't go that well, and they will not be pursuing this any further. What was the plan? There is over 3,300 rural post offices. They have been saved under a moratorium that goes back to 1994, a moratorium on rural post office closures. The majority of the postal network is in country ridings. And so they came up with a plan, heavily proposed by their largest union, Canadian Union of Postal Workers, to say, look, if you're in High Prairie, you have to go to the post office anyway. There's no doorstep delivery. So why not have free Wi-Fi, buy Staples business supplies, maybe get a $1,000 microloan? We have commercial paper shredding services, electric vehicle charging stations, all of these community services, and you'll get a revenue stream through this network. Well, they won't say how much they lost or how much they earned, but and this cryptic report suggested did not go well. Rob, If you are in a country riding and you have one of 3,361 rural post offices, treasure the moment because the cuts are coming.
Yeah, they're coming for sure. Yeah, you can't lose whatever it was. The last figure, it was in excess of $200 million for a quarter.
In a quarter, last year, $1.5 billion.
Yeah. Okay. When we come back, residential school denialism. There was a bill making its way through the parliament that seems to have come to a stunning halt. We'll ask Tom Korski about that when we return. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Tom Korski is with us, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter, with us every Friday. What happened to an amendment in a government bill that would have criminalized residential school denialism?
The Senate as a whole quashed it, Rob. It was really a very unusual and dramatic set of circumstances. Here was a bill that's been hanging around for 9 months. This is colloquially known, Bill C-9, as the swastika ban bill. Is going to ban public display of the swastika. And after 9 months of parliamentary hearings and debate and petitions and you name it, the Senate Human Rights Committee on Monday, in late evening session, as the sun was drawing to twilight, shotgunned an amendment in there to criminalize Indian residential school denialism. And it passed by a wide margin. What did it say? If you willfully promote hatred against Indigenous peoples by condoning, denying, or downplaying the residential schools, you may be guilty of an indictable offense punishable by 2 years in jail. Well, the Senate got a hold of this and, on direction of Cabinet, couldn't kill it fast enough. But, Rob, you're aware, ever since the announcement of 215 children's graves in an orchard in Kamloops, BC, and the subsequent inability of the First Nation to exhume any remains, despite receiving $12 million for exhumation of remains, this has been a very hot topic, and the Senate committee just blundered right into it.
Yeah, it seems to me as though the senators were ready to pass it, but some sort of direction came from the cabinet to remove that piece of the legislation. With Senator Morrow saying no legal analysis has been conducted, because it's not as though one by one the senators stood up in the upper chamber and said, we need to get rid of this amendment. You know, it was they were ready to pass it, I think, until direction came from cabinet. Is that your sense of it? That's my sense of it.
Absolutely. No, this was a runaway committee, and it was a majority of Liberal appointees in the committee who said, we're going to manufacture this crime. And we're going to shoehorn this in the last dying minutes of the parliamentary session with a bill that, after all the hearings were done, they already heard from 56 witnesses. We're going to shoehorn this into the criminal code. No one's even going to notice. And, you know, you're right. It was Cabinet's man in the Senate, Pierre Moreau. He's a lawyer from Montreal, and he hustled down to the Senate and said, I'm voting against this. I strongly recommend you do too. What did he say? The online backlash to the amendment has already begun, and it did. When people heard that, you know, when you start threatening 2 years in jail for saying things that I don't like, that's a little bit rough.
Making news. This is very interesting. It'll be interesting to see what comes of it. They're going to audit this 4-day conference. There's a 4-day conference on Indigenous languages, keeping Indigenous languages alive, preserving Indigenous languages. All well and good to have a conference on that. All well and good to preserve Indigenous languages. Questionable is a 4-day conference that costs $10 million. $10 million, like $2.5 million a day. And they've been trying to figure out who authorized this expenditure, $10 million. What have they found out?
Well, the whistleblowers complained. This was the Commissioner of Languages' first appointee of his kind. Ronald Ignas he's an anthropologist from British Columbia. By the way, his term is up on July 12th. Don't think he's getting a reappointment. And what he did was he spent exactly the equivalent of $2.5 million a day on this conference in Ottawa last summer. And the Department of Canadian Heritage, that's the oversight department, when questioned very sharply by members of the Public Accounts Committee, could not explain where the money came from, why there was no oversight. We had never approved it. Managers wanted, they really hung the commissioner out to dry. It was like that when I got here. They used the Homer Simpson defense, but now the audits are underway. And there will never be such a conference again. Rob, the iron law in Ottawa is, you know this, when the cat's away, the mice will play. If there's no parliamentary oversight of a commissioner, you watch the money fly.
Okay. If you'll hang around for a few more minutes, it's been a couple of weeks since we've talked to Tom Korski, so we have a lot of material to cover, like how much is the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board investing our retirement savings into...
Oh, no.
WeChat in China? Okay, when we come back, this is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Oh, just a few minutes more with Tom Korski from Blacklock's Reporter. How much has the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board invested in China's WeChat, and why is that such a questionable investment, Tom?
145 million, Rob. It's big money. What is WeChat? WeChat is a Chinese language social media platform that is the favored platform for hit jobs by Chinese Communist Party agents. That's not me saying that. That's the Department of Foreign Affairs. In various internal memos, they have identified WeChat as the, what did they call it? A place where we observed unusual account activity that constitutes disinformation by Chinese party agents. Well, what kind of disinformation? There was a conservative candidate in a Toronto riding in 2025, a podcaster named Joe Tay. And on WeChat, they distributed, Communist Party agents distributed Chinese language wanted posters pointing out that Hong Kong police were after Joe for various offenses and hurting the feelings of the motherland, and wanted him delivered to local authorities.
That's right.
What was the effect? The RCMP told this candidate to suspend his campaign due to threats on WeChat. So of all places to invest CPP investment funds, they picked this sleazy deal. It's really something, Rob.
Yeah, it really is. If you read Blacklock's reporting on this, we have, through the Canada Pension Plan, invested, almost $2 billion in China, as a matter of fact.
Absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And, for all that, you say, okay, well, let's get sleazy, but look at the returns. No, they could have made more money last year just buying an index fund. So for all of their employees and their analysis, when you have neither pride nor integrity, it's right. This is not the financial advisor for you.
What's known, moving along, about organized crime's infiltration of the West Coast fishery?
The organized crime is in the crab business, says a former commissioner testifying in the Senate Fisheries Committee, said it's big money, it's a great place to launder large sums if you are in the black market, and has advised the feds to get what they call a beneficial ownership registry. What's that? It means you don't get to use a shell company or hide behind an offshore corporate entity. You must identify name and address who owns
numbered
the
companies.
crab license. That's right.
Right. No numbered companies. Right. It really is. I mean, for years there were all sorts of problems with crime in the Atlantic fishery, especially, the lobster fishery and the crab fishery off the coast of Nova Scotia. Now it seems West Coast fishery is no better. Part of the problem is that at the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, it's just been a revolving door of ministers there. If they can get a year or two in as the minister, they're doing well. In the last 10 years, Hunter Tutu, Dominic LeBlanc, Jonathan Wilkinson, Bernadette Jordan, Joyce Murray, Diane Le Boutillier, and now Joanne Thompson.
Isn't that something?
7 ministers in 10 years.
That's a core resource. That's right. It's only Veterans Affairs is worse.
Yeah. So finally, we only have a minute left here, Tom. Canada has a new Governor General, Louise Arbour. When that happens and there's an announcement made of a new Governor General, there's usually a swanky party in Ottawa to celebrate that occasion. We don't know how much this particular celebration cost, but how much have those events cost in the past?
They've gone anywhere from a pandemic time, about 300,000, 200,000, to over $1 million for Mikhail Jean back in the day. She spent at $1.3 million on her induction. Adrian Clarkson, $500,000. We asked, what are you going to spend on Monday for those banquets? And they wouldn't say. I wonder why.
I wonder. Oh, it'll come out. It'll come out sooner or later. Blacklocks will dig that up. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom Korski. Great to hear from you again this week.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, bye-bye. Minding Ottawa's business. Aren't you glad somebody is? That's Tom Korski. Talkback Friday. Free for all Talkback. Wide open, open line, open topic. You start the conversation today on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today it's the Friday free-for-all. And we don't come up with the topics on Fridays. We always have a few ready to go, but we always prefer to know what's on your mind. So what's on your mind today? What do you want to talk about? If you want to talk about something that's been in the news, there's always news. Lots of news this week, lots of news today. If you want to talk about something that you think should be in the news, feel free to raise it here, whatever it happens to be. Serious or not so serious. We have a phone line for you right now. All of our phone lines are open right now, and the number to call, 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. And if you've never called before, just mention that. We will make your call a priority. We love hearing from first-time callers at 1-833-668-2577. You can call right now. You'll get right on the air. Well, this time last week, the big news was bad news on the economy. Today, the big news is good news on the economy. Go figure. What a difference a week makes. I would imagine if you're Prime Minister Mark Carney, you are very happy to see the employment report today. The labor force survey came out this morning, the jobs report from StatsCan, and it was surprisingly good. Last week, the economy was in a recession. Now we have a jobs boom 1 week later. This is the report for the month of May. And in the month of May, the economy created about 88,000 jobs. And the unemployment rate went down to 6.6%. I mean, what's not to like? Construction jobs, 27,000 of those created. Culture and recreation, 19,000 jobs. Transportation and warehousing, that's basically the trucking business. 19,000 jobs there as well. Accommodation and food services, hotels, restaurants, 17,000 jobs. And even those student summer job seekers, improvement on that front. Unemployment rate dropping 0.9 percentage points to 13.4%. But it's still headed in the right direction. So what's not to like? Wages up by 3%. Average hourly wage in Canada, $37.24 an hour. $37.24 an hour. So 1 week ago, StatsCan said there's no growth in the economy. In fact, it's a technical recession. A week later, a brand new report, and it shows the best job creation for the economy since November of last year. You figure it out. Now, most of these figures are what StatsCan calls seasonally adjusted because there are different trends in the job market depending on the time of year. So StatsCan takes that into account. For example, hiring for Christmas and stuff like that. But it's construction season, for example, so it's good to see there are more construction jobs. It's almost the busy tourist season, so it's good to see hiring happening in hotels and restaurants. And it's the summer job season for students, so it's good that it's picking up for students, looking for some work experience. From a political point of view, this could take whatever win the Conservatives had in their sales out of those sales because they've spent the entire week blaming the Liberals for a full-blown recession and the only recession in the G7. But I guess I would ask, does this sound about right to you? What you're seeing with the economy? Lots of jobs, people getting hired on construction sites, in hotels, in restaurants. Is it a bit easier for that student to find a summer job than it has been in years past? I ask that because I've heard from people that they don't believe the inflation report, for example. They don't believe inflation is running at less than 3%. So what about a report like this? Is this what's really happening in the job market these days? Jobs aplenty out there? 1-833-668-2577. Let's start the Friday free-for-all talkback with a phone call from Wayne. He's in Calgary today. Hello, Wayne.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, hi there, Wayne. Yeah.
Thanks for your show, and thanks for putting on Tom Korski. Gives a little bit of food for thought for the Friday free for all. I want to comment on a couple of things. First of all, what you and Tom were talking about with respect to the cabinet giving the Senate direction to yank the bill C9, I think you said.
Well, not the whole bill, just the residential school denialism part of the bill.
Right.
From the bill. Yeah.
So therein illustrates the whole issue that I think a lot of Albertans have about wanting to separate. One of your earlier callers on another day said that it's more than a pipeline. Well, I think that's true. And, when you have cabinet that can actually direct the Senate, then how effective really is the Senate? Why do we even have a Senate? So that I think is something that really Albertans have an issue with, not having an effective Senate. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the Treaty 8 chiefs who are all up in arms about the referendum that is going to happen that is not binding. It seems to me they misunderstand the fact that A, it's not binding, and the fact that they would be consulted during the process of the next referendum in order to have that referendum move ahead. So I'm not certain where they're going and why they're doing what they're doing.
Okay, well, I guess all I would say to that is they won the first round in court, right? There's going to be an appeal. And then appeal.
It's not a settled question, right? It's going to the Alberta Court of Appeal. So,
yeah.
So, and I would imagine
and depending on what happens there, it will most likely go to the Supreme Court of Canada. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, thanks very much.
That. No, thank you. Thank you for calling and getting us started today. Again, all our lines are available right now. And you can start the conversation today on anything that happens to be on your mind, because it's the Friday free-for-all talkback today. 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is a Friday free-for-all talkback. Love to hear from you today. No callers at the moment. Everybody starting the weekend early? Here's a question for you. Maybe this will prompt some calls. Hot topic on Parliament Hill this week. You have a streaming service? Okay. You have Netflix, Prime, Paramount Plus. There's a lot of the Spotify would qualify as well. Do you think big tech, the big streaming companies, Amazon, Netflix, Apple, Disney, Disney Plus, Google, like YouTube, Spotify, I mentioned, all those big American companies that offer streaming services in Canada, should they have to pay a tax to the Canadian government, a portion of their revenues, to fund Canadian content, like Canadian film and television content? What do you think? What do you think? Where do you stand on that? This used to be called the Netflix tax. The Netflix tax. Progressives love it. Conservatives hate it. The Netflix tax. The CRTC wanted to triple the streaming tax, the Netflix tax, and that would have meant that those big American companies would have had to pay a 15% tax on their Canadian revenues. It used to be 5%, and the money would be collected by the government and then distributed to fund Canadian content. Think of a program like that smash hit Heated Rivalry. Okay, that's been a blockbuster all over the world. Okay, it would fund content like that. But shortly after this was announced from the CRTC, we're tripling the Netflix tax, Prime Minister Carney intervened and had his government instruct the CRTC, you are going to place that under review. Please, you're going to place that under review. Now, Mr. Carney said it's about affordability. Canadians are having a hard time with the cost of living. We don't want them to have to pay more for their streaming services, which, okay, it might be partly true. But I think the bigger truth is this is a trade irritant for the Trump administration, which is heavily lobbied in Washington by these big technology companies. So the prime minister is being accused of caving in to big tech or selling out to big tech. Is that how you see it? I'm telling you, man, the entertainment industry in this country is not happy about this, like not even one little bit. These big U.S. companies are worth trillions of dollars. I mean, when you combine their value on the stock market, they're worth many times the size of the Canadian economy. And they have millions of Canadian customers, and they don't want to pay any money to fund Canadian content. And apparently they have a friend in Mark Carney. Where do you come down on this? Okay. Should these tech giants be forced to help fund Canadian content, Canadian film and television production, essentially Canadian culture? Yes, these companies make millions of dollars here. Canadian broadcasters have to help fund Canadian content, so these big U.S. tech giants should have to as well. The industry needs the money. Or without it, we'll just be swamped, overrun with American content. Canadian culture will die. Or no, let's face it, it raises the prices of these streaming services for all Canadians at a time when times are tough already. And it angers the Trump administration at a time when Canada's trying to get a trade deal with the Trump administration. Where do you stand on that? The Netflix tax, streaming tax. 1-833-668-2577 today on the Friday Free-for-All. Emerson is on the line. Hello, Emerson.
Hi, Rob. Thank you for taking my call. Rob,
Yeah,
I
my
just
pleasure.
wanted to ask. Yeah, I just wanted to ask. This is how I'm feeling. I'm not sure where you stand on this, but I'm so disillusioned with all politicians. It just seems that when they campaign, they make these promises. Then when they get in, they say, oh, after reviewing the books, there's no money, there's no this. Do you feel like I feel that if they make substantive promises to the public that are the promises that got them elected in the first place, do you think that they should resign? I mean, they basically lied their way into office. And I know this happens all the time. So it's just like Danielle Smith is saying right now, my hands are tied. I have to call this referendum. 90% say we don't want to leave, but yet we're going to spend all this money. And then people say, oh, wait till the next election. She's done. She's done. Well, she's not done because the polls indicate she's like leading by 58% in Alberta. So why do people even bother opening their mouth about, oh, I don't trust the government anymore and I'm so done with the government? So I just kind of feel, Rob, do you feel there should be some accountability? Like they should have some way?
What would accountability look like? Like, what do you want? I mean, in your province, you have recall legislation. Not every province has that. You have the ability to recall politicians.
Should we be able to recall the prime minister if Canadians got together and said, look, you promised us this, you haven't delivered. You're done. You're done. You're the leader. Okay, we want to blame the members of parliament, but at the end of the day, he's the captain of the ship. So, I mean, maybe there should be a clause that if the majority of Canadians called a referendum on his leadership and they received maybe a certain amount to recall him, there should be an automatic leadership review. Maybe we wouldn't be able to get him to resign, but it should trigger an automatic leadership review. That's what I'm feeling, because right now everyone's saying, oh, Carney can't do no wrong. He's so high. He don't care. Blah, blah, blah. He knows Quebec will always vote for him. He knows he's got half of Ontario. And it just seems like I give up. Like I just feel so lost in this country now. I just wanted to ask where you stand on that, Rob, because I trust you.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I would. I don't know how I feel on that. I mean, at the end of the day, the prime minister is an MP. So if you're going to have, say you were to have recall legislation for members of parliament, the same way you have them for MLAs in Alberta, I guess the prime minister would have to be subject to that. But would that create uncertainty for the economy, instability in the economy? I guess that would be one of the things that I would have to consider and give some thought to. Emerson, it's out there for public consumption if anybody wants to pick up on where Emerson has left us. It's the Friday Free for All Talkback at 1-833-668-2577 to have your say on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
To Enfield, Nova Scotia, Shelley is on the line. Hi, Shelley.
Hi, Rob. How are you today?
Very good, Shelley. Thank you. What's on your mind?
I'm not calling about the Netflix. I apologize. I tried to get in a couple times on the phone to about the rent caps and different things. But I'll make it quick. The only thing I'd like to find out is right now they have once a year 5%. Okay, so that's one thing.
If I could just inform our listeners, you're talking about rent control in Nova Scotia, where rent increases are capped at 5% a year. Right? It's set to expire next year. The government hasn't said whether it's going to extend that or not.
Right. So my question is, and probably a lot of people, is, okay, so 5% a year, but how far can they go? And I don't mean percentage-wise, I mean dollar-wise. Because if you're at, let's say you're at $2,500 for rent, which is not too far off from a lot. So you're $2,500, so 5% a year, you're going to creep up there. So how are they allowed to go $4,000, $5,000? Like, where does it end that way? Is my curiosity. And I'm sure people wonder, is there a cap on that?
Well, I guess 5% is 5%, right?
Yes, exactly.
5% is 5%. So they would be, on $2,500, they could raise it by $125.
But each year,
and then the next year,
going up and
then
up.
the next year, and then the next year would be, 5% of $2,625.
Right.
So,
exactly. But like I'm saying, like all of a sudden you're up to $3,500. Then you keep going. Is there a stopping point to that, or are people going to be?
Not as far as I know.
No,
not as far as I know. Do you think there should be?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, yes.
So what if it hits whatever? Like, say it hits your rent for a 2-bedroom hits, say $3,000 a month, which would be like Toronto rent in Halifax.
Oh
what
my
do you
God!
Think? There should be a rent freeze or something like that.
Oh, there has to be. Well, exactly. I mean, I get it. Everything goes up, and the landlords are saying, power goes up, that they're paying that and everything,
Sure.
I get all that. I'm not, I understand all that. But like I said, for the people that are renting, I mean, a lot of people can't afford the $2,500, let alone anything more. So that, everybody's going to be buying a tent. So, it's really sad. It really, really is sad out there. So I think there really should be. I wish, some other people would call in maybe on another day and just give their feedback on that too, because it's, how could people afford that? I mean, some people's mortgage payments will be less than what some people's rent.
That's already the case already. Yeah, in many cases, that's already the case already, especially for people who bought homes, 15 years ago. They're paying much lower mortgage payments than people are in 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. I hear you. I suspect that I would make this prediction. I think the Houston government, because it's going to be an easy political win, is going to extend the rent cap. That would be my prediction. And that's not to say that I support rent control, because there's ample evidence that rent control is not good for the rental market. We could talk about that. We can debate that until the cows come home. Or for the next hour and a half, if you want, on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, Friday Free for All Talkback. It's so great to be with you and bouncing around on these issues. I love it. Let's go to Dick is up next. Thanks for waiting, Dick. You're on the air. Hi, Dick.
Hi, Rob.
Hey.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, my pleasure. What's on your mind today?
I just had a comment on the numbers I saw on the front page of the Calgary Sun that Premier Smith was talking about how much it's going to cost if Alberta separates.
Yeah,
and
$400 billion.
That figure, $400 billion. That's what the number was. So
yeah.
I just kind of always have been wondering how much does Alberta contribute to the rest of Canada with the Equalization Fund. And so I looked it up. And from 2000 to 2025, the number was $56 billion.
Okay, where did you get that figure? Where did you get that figure?
From Google. I just Googled it.
Well, you just Googled it because, again, the equalization program is a federal program. It's a federal program. It's federal money, right?
Exactly. You're right. On the in that article, there was several articles that were on that came up when I asked the question, but they made it clear it was federal money, and they said Alberta received zero, and
that's true.
And I didn't go into the individual provinces. Quebec obviously was at the top.
Yes,
but that was their number. Now I'm just going by memory. It's been a couple of days since I read that article, but I just wanted to put that out to make it clear to your listeners that I'm not saying that you should vote to separate, or I'm not saying you should vote to stay. I'm voting to separate simply because they leave us no other choice. Like if we want a say in anything, we would have to separate.
Okay. Well, it would be, according to the Premier, an expensive proposition. $400 billion to start. I thank you for your call. Dick. I was saving that until the second hour. I was going to bring that up. But you've raised it $400 billion to start, according to the Premier. She has her people working on an official report right now. But it's not just that. There are ongoing costs year after year. They haven't said precisely what those costs would be, but $25 to $50 billion every year in ongoing costs for whatever you want to call it, the Republic of Alberta. To Nova Scotia, Steve is in Windsor, Nova Scotia. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Steve. Thank you. Yeah, what's on your mind today, Steve?
Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about you were talking about the recession, and I think it was sort of what's happening seemed to be about what I thought it would happen. And I sort of take a look at it from the standpoint of back in the last quarter of last year, the GDP was down by 1%. The first quarter of this year, it was down by 0.1%. So there seems to be a progression from a little bit worse to a little bit better. And reading recently, I think it was early yesterday, that it looks like the April numbers are, the preliminary numbers coming out in April are looking that we're coming out of a recession. And the May numbers for employment, the 88,000 growth, seems to me to just suggest that you're not going to have 88,000 growth and a drop in your unemployment rate to 6.6 if you're sitting inside a recession. So I kind of think that it's probably gone through and I think that's why also they call it a technical recession as opposed to a true recession, because it seems to be improving as opposed to getting worse along the way. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, there may be something to be said about that. Does it feel, I raised this last week, 1 week ago today, we were talking about this. I was asking, does it feel like a recession? I've lived through recessions before. Does this feel like a recession to you?
No,
I lived through the recession in the early 90s. There was a terrible recession in the early 90s. I was in university at the time. A lot of people who were graduating from university, there were no jobs for any of those people. Of course, there was a recession because of the global financial crisis, a terrible recession during the global financial crisis. And I mean, the economy fell off a cliff during the pandemic. Does this feel like any of that?
Yeah, to me, it doesn't feel like it. I even go back a little bit further back, where there was high inflation as well, and things like wage and price controls and stuff like that.
Yeah,
those were. Yeah. And when you're talking about, I can remember, interest rates and mortgage rates at 22%.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing compares like that.
And that drove the economy into recession in 1982. There was a terrible recession in 1982.
Yes. I think that the wording that they use, being a technical recession, is probably the right wording, because what they're saying is there's parts of the economy that are booming. The auto industry probably isn't one of them. The forestry industry is probably suffering a little bit, but there are other areas of the economy that are really doing well. And so, in other words, if it had been 1% the last quarter and then 1.25% this quarter, now you're moving in a trend that's not very good. But if we're going from a 1% dip in the last quarter last year to a 0.1% in the first quarter of this year, that's moving in a positive trend as opposed to a negative trend.
Okay.
And I think that's where
if you listen on Monday, we'll have to wrap it up there. You listen on Monday, we're going to have one of the top economists in the country is going to come on Monday, explain how he sees what's going on with this economy. A week ago, it's not a great, whether it's a little bit negative in the GDP growth or a little bit positive, it's nothing to brag about. It's nothing to write home about. It's not going to light anyone's hair on fire, the economic performance. But then today you have, nobody was expecting a jobs figure like this of 88,000 jobs created in the month of May. And next week, the Bank of Canada has to set interest rates. So what the heck is going on with this economy? Thank you for your call. 1-833-668-2577 on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
To Moncton, Ontario. I think I'm saying that right. John is there. Hi, John.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, John, where's Moncton, Ontario? Where, if I could, John, where's Moncton, Ontario? Where?
Between Mitchell and Listowel on Highway 23 in Ontario.
Oh, not far from Listo. Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you. What's on your mind, John?
I have a question for you and your listeners. You know how Trump is talking of the 51st state? And what would happen if Canada asked England to send their troops to be stationed in Canada? Thank you, and I will listen to your comments.
Okay, I just so I could expand a little bit. I just want to understand your question. What would happen if U.S. troops were stationed in Canada?
No,
is that your question?
Not U.S. English.
Okay, I still
troops
don't.
From England.
If troops from England were stationed in Canada?
Yes, because we are English colony. So would that, how would...
Well, we're not a colony.
Well, kind of, we were. But anyways, what would that change Trump's talk?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it would. But I'll leave that. I'll open that up to the listeners. John, thank you for your call. Appreciate the call. Let's go to North Battleford, Saskatchewan. Orville is in North Battleford. Hello, Orville.
Hi there.
Good to hear from you.
Good morning. Thanks Thank you. Thanks for taking my call. Now, the economy of Canada has been the economy of Canada. Listening to all this stuff in the last few days, complaining about that. I don't think we don't have much. I don't feel a recession in Canada at all right now. What I feel is if there's an effect in the Canadian economy, first of all, Trump tariffs are affecting the Canadian economy. Plus the Iran-Middle East war is a huge effect. Well, high oil prices, what we see right off the bat. But outside of that, I think the Canadian economy is doing okay and looking for better things to come as all these announcements are going to produce some results.
Okay. So when you say, I think the Canadian economy is doing okay, what would you hold up, say, as evidence of that? I'm not disputing what you're saying. I'm just curious why you would say that.
Okay, our interest rate is quite low, and it looks like it may stay there for a while. Hard to say, but when you're under 3% Bank of Canada rate, that's reasonable. I can remember when we had a high inflation rate, interest rates were high. People leaving university probably had a hard time finding jobs back years ago. It's just pretty well, no matter where you travel in Canada, somebody's looking to hire somebody. I'm a senior. I'm 71, and I'm working full time, and we love every minute of it. And I could be working at other places.
So you have, you find the job market to be pretty accommodated right now.
Oh, absolutely.
No problem finding work.
I could, and like I love my job right now, and I could easily be working at Fort McMurray or, there's so many choices right now.
Okay. Well, let me run something by you here because I this is something that Tom Korski and I were speaking about this week in front of the Commons Finance Committee in Parliament Hill. The CEO of the largest food bank in Toronto said that 1 in 10 people in Toronto are relying on food banks. 1 in 10, sir. There's 4.1 million visits to the food bank a year.
Yeah, and that's a big population area. That is kind of first of all, it's sad to hear those kind of things. And it's
a lot of those people as well went to either college or university and are working full time. Something like 50% of those people have post-secondary education and work full time and still can't make ends meet.
Yeah,
what does that say about the state of the economy?
That's I'm thinking there's challenges out there. Maybe there's some high prices. Maybe some people will have to look at some of the things they're doing and kind of cut back in some of their livelihood. If you're a smoker, maybe reduce that area. If you enjoy socializing.
But also, you're 71, you said. You're 71, and you don't have to tell me this. Do you own your home?
Yeah, own it. No mortgages. But
free and clear, right? See, so that's very good for you. But what about the 35-year-old who's paying $2,000 a month in rent, is working full time, maybe even has a side hustle as an Uber driver or something like that, and it's going to take that person maybe 20 years just to save for the down payment. It will take that person as long to save for a down payment on a home as it took you to pay off your home.
Yeah, that's right. Very true. But somehow I think. If people can find that way to have less debt, and then that gives you a better chance each day.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. I mean, it all depends, I suppose, on what lens you look at it, right? That you're looking through when it comes to the state of this economy right now. Thank you for your call. Friday Free for All Talkback on News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It's a Friday Free for All Talkback. So raise an issue. We'll give it an airing. Let's go to Ken is in Calgary. He's a first-time caller. Hello, Ken.
Hi there. I've got a two-parter for you. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine, Ken. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Two-parter. First is that my mother received her quarterly or whatever it is GST payment.
Oh, yes.
The now note this is the month of June. My mother passed away December 14th, 2025. Her death has been properly reported, and her final income tax has been filed and so forth. I have my own theory is that the bloated liberal bureaucracy is sloppy because it makes it easier for them to steal. On the other hand, if they wish to argue in counterpart that they're simply incompetent, I won't necessarily argue with them.
Wow. So your mother passed away, what, 6 months ago?
Correct.
Around 6 months ago? Yeah. And received the 14th of December. So a little, more. Okay. And received the new and improved GST rebate today.
Yeah, I'll get to the name of that and the tragedy of that in just a moment. Okay. So, as I said, I challenge the federal bureaucracy to admit to either incompetence or sloppiness to allow their stealing more quickly.
Okay.
All right.
So is that part one? Okay.
The second part is that the GST name has been changed to the Canada Groceries and Essentials Benefit.
An Essentials Benefit. That's right. Yes.
The federal government is admitting how much difficulty, as you pointed out to a previous caller, that people are having in paying for even basic groceries. Given the heavy deficit, this means, Rob, that Canada is borrowing money to feed its own people, and that is well known to have a limited fuse.
Okay. Yeah, that's certainly one way to look at it. It was lobbied pretty hard by anti-poverty organizations, advocates for the poor, for the disabled, to bring in a benefit just like this, a groceries and essentials benefit. And it figured, well, we already know who needs the money because they qualify for the GST rebate. So they improved it. They sweetened the pot a little bit. And this is a one-time payment. I think it's an increase of 50%, and it's going up, 25%. The one thing, I don't qualify for it. I didn't get the money. So the one thing I will say is the research is very clear. When you send people money who need the money, they will spend the money. And today is probably, a welcome day for a lot of people. Like, it's 12 million people in Canada are getting this benefit today. Groceries and Essentials benefit. If you've received yours, I'd be curious to learn more about it. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. It's the Friday free-for-all Talkback today. So we're wide open on topics. I will say in the final hour of Talkback on any day of the week, get a lot of calls from Alberta. Curious what you think of all the separation news out of Alberta this week. It was at the start of the week, Premier Smith said that separation would cost Albertans $400 billion just to get things going. Okay, it could cost something like $400 billion to set up an independent Alberta. $400 billion. And then tens of billions of dollars a year every year thereafter. Okay, this is Premier Smith's economic argument against separation. That it's going to cost you. And it costs you lots and lots of money. $400 billion to start, and then $25 to $50 billion every year in ongoing costs. Alberta's share of the national debt, national defense, replacing all the federal programs, old age security, employment insurance, border control and customs, NATO obligations. You're going to need a whole new bureaucracy. So the premier's going to have her people do a report, break down what the cost could be and where they will be. The pro-independence movement says hogwash. I read one report. They think the number is closer to $6 billion. So 6 billion, 400 billion. Bit of range in estimates there, wouldn't you say? What do you think about that? $400 billion to set up an independent Alberta. I mean, do you believe her? And does that change your view of independence at all? 1-833-668-2577. Just one of many items that we're tossing around today. Keith is in Ottawa. Hello, Keith.
Hi, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Good.
What's on your mind?
Well, you mentioned about Netflix before and putting a tax on that. I think that's totally ridiculous. What would they do with that money? Is it just a tax grab, or is it?
Well, they say they're going to distribute it to content creators.
Yes, well, that's just
people, the film and television industry.
Yes, and news, I suppose. Well, that gets me to my basic concern about phoning you up. I just read a book called Sleepwalking by Jerry Amernick, and it deals with how the contributors to Canadian history, MacDonald, Ryerson, Cornwallis, have been slandered. And he has done quite a bit of research. He's an English teacher at some of the community colleges in the Toronto area. He's from an immigrant background himself. But it's just incredible. I think everybody should read that. I mean, our contributors are great people from history, MacDonald, Ryerson, Cornwallis, some of these fellows. They've been slandered. And the press has done nothing to research the statements that have been going against them. And I don't know. I'd almost feel like sending the book to you. Have you heard of that book?
No, I have not. No. And I've not seen anything in the news media about it either.
No, well,
for that matter. Has there been anything, for example, in the Post about it? Has there been anything in the National Post? Sounds like something the National Post.
I think he mentions Flanagan, who's been mentioned in the National Post, and that's the other thing. If somebody in the Senate wants to make it a crime to talk about residential schools.
Residential school denialism, that was part of a bill. They've taken that out of the bill now. It won't be part of the bill. The bill's moving forward, but not with that part.
Yes. And what happened with the $12 million that the Indian reservation got around the residential school in Canada?
You're asking the wrong guy. I don't know where the money went.
But I mean, our history, people think that Canada murdered these kids. That's what was allowed to be processed and put in the press with no.
Yes, but let's not gloss over the fact that even Stephen Harper apologized in the Canadian Parliament for what happened at the residential schools. It's not like everything was sunshine and lollipops at the residential schools.
I'm not saying that at all. It was tough going for a lot of kids, and but certainly the way the press went a few years ago, it was exaggerated. It was made like the kids were just taken out and shot.
Well, it was a very emotionally charged, and I would say it was not the media's finest.
And there was no basis for that. But anyways, I recommend.
What's the title of the book again?
Sleepwalking.
Yes.
Sleepwalking by Jerry Amernick. You get it on Amazon. Amernic is his last name. But if anybody wants to have some redemption for Canadian historical figures, read that book.
Thank you, Keith. Good to hear your voice there. Thank you. Long-time caller to this and other talk shows that I've been part of over decades now. Keith in Ottawa. Okay, we'll stop here for the second hour. We are just getting underway, though. We have probably 2 or 3 lines available on the Friday Free for All Talkback. If you want to join the discussion or start one of your own, jump right into it, will you? Here on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
to Sylvan Lake. Wade is in Sylvan Lake. Hello, Wade.
Hey, Rob. How you doing today?
Hanging in there, Wade. How are you doing?
I'm borderline magnificent.
Borderline magnificent. My gosh. You must have a lot of money then, because you're going to have to pay all of these costs with your Republic of Alberta once you separate, Wade.
I don't have a lot of money, and but I can tell you that $400 billion that Danielle came out with is just a scare tactic.
Right.
She was my hero for a long, long time, and I gave her the benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And I over the last couple of years, I donated probably $10,000 to the UCP party and Danielle Smith. And now she's 100% using my donations to run against me and her base. So the $400 billion is a scare tactic. The Alberta Prosperity Project, if you go on their website, they have a document on there called The Value of Freedom. It's been on that site for over a year. And not once have we heard anybody from anywhere say anything against the value of freedom. It's been on there for over a year. Anybody can look at it. You can download it. You can print it off. It was done by Dennis Kalma. It's been looked at by actuaries, CGAs, lawyers, and all that stuff. And all those numbers are they're all historical numbers based on from Revenue Canada or from the Canadian government as well as the Alberta government. So of course, she's got to start up with this scare tactic because that's all they've got. They're going to use fear mongering to get in our way. And it's kind of funny, Rob, because right now this is who we have working against us: Mark Carney, Pierre Poilievre, Danielle Smith, Jason Kenney, Naheed Nenshi, and Thomas Lukasik. Now, these people are supposedly all enemies, and now they're all together working against us. But we're not stopping.
Well, you've managed, even though you're for independence, what some would call a separatist, you've managed to unite a whole bunch of people from various political backgrounds. That's for sure. It's actually quite an accomplishment. I will say that there was another poll. I was reading about this in the National Post. What are you going to do if 40% of the population leaves Alberta?
What do you mean? Like physically gets up and leaves?
Yeah, like if there's an
independent party like it's 1999.
Oh, really? What do you think you can get by if you lose 2 million taxpayers?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely?
No,
really? Yeah.
Well,
and your population goes from 5 million down to 2 million or something like that?
I have a theory. My theory is I ran around all last summer with Mitch Sylvester and the Alberta Prosperity Project, and we went all over this province. And I had an opportunity to look at this province through a different set of eyes. What I can say is all we truly need to survive is clean water, food, clothes, and shelter. We've got all of that here. We've got clean water. We can grow our own food. We got clothes. We got shelter. We've got energy. We've got everything we need to survive in this province. And if we got together, we could do it with no money whatsoever.
All right.
Until
if that's how you view it, I'm just wondering. It'll kind of be in Quebec in the 70s. There was the great exodus when the PQ came to power, and they were planning a referendum. They held it in 1980. The old line was, "Would the last one please turn off the lights?" Okay. That's what it sounds like, according to this new poll that's out. That's in the National Post today. Thank you. Wade, good to hear from you. 39% of respondents said they would continue to live in the new independent country. 38% said, no, thanks. I'm out of here. Let's go to, where are we going? Kitchener, Ontario. Kitchener. Who's in Kitchener? Bruce is in Kitchener. Hi, Bruce.
I'd like to address two issues, if I may. The first is the streaming tax. My objection to Carney's move is I don't think he should be negotiating in the newspapers. in the press, that they should be sitting down at the table and saying, okay, this is a U.S. irritant. Okay, we're willing to budge on the streaming tax. What are you giving back? You don't like the booze out of the liquor stores? We will change that, bring it back. What are you willing to give back? It seems like we are conceding all sorts of things with the hope that the U.S. government will kindly return something in its place. I'm not sure if that's the way I would negotiate.
All right. Okay. You think he keeps making these concessions, but has little to show for it so far.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
Right. And with the booze bans, that's in 8 out of 10 provinces have taken all the U.S. alcohol off the shelves. But that's a provincial thing. I don't even know if the prime minister could do anything about it. Maybe he could make some phone calls and encourage people like Doug Ford to put the booze back on the shelves. Doesn't sound like Doug Ford wants to do that, though.
It's hurting American distillers, and I think he's getting pressure from them. So the other issue I wanted to talk about was the Senate amendment about residential schools and all that. And I know they've withdrawn that right now. But I think when we look at that issue, we can't deny residential schools. They happened. It was the whole idea of assimilation was the way things were dealt with back then. Looking back now, it wasn't the best way, but it wasn't unusual for people to do that with immigrants. And then we have the abuse that happened in the schools. We can't deny that either. And the federal government, the provincial government, the Anglican Church, the Catholic Church, everybody has apologized for it. The federal government has paid hundreds of millions in reparations. We can't argue that either. I think where we run into problems was that claim about what's buried in the ground and how they got there. That between 1840 and 1890, when the residential schools were in place, our health system was very different. Child deaths from things like measles, mumps, diphtheria, cholera.
Yes, you're right. You're right. But with residential schools, and we're going to have to wrap it up because we're very tight on time. In fact, Curtis is going to start playing the music here pretty soon. There you go. They happen in greater numbers, first of all, in the residential schools than they did elsewhere. They did elsewhere, but to a greater extent in the residential schools. So was the prevalence of physical abuse and sexual abuse. And let's not forget, the official policy really was to what? Kill the Indian and the child. Which Prime Minister Harper said during his apology about the residential schools when he was Prime Minister. Okay, be right back. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Kim in Calgary's up next on the Friday Free For All Talkback. Hello, Kim.
Hi, Rob. The frustrating thing for me regarding this October referendum in Alberta is Alberta should actually be holding the provincial election this October, not this referendum. The reason being is that this UCP government was elected to serve for a 4-year term that would have ended in May 2027. But suddenly, during their midterm, they decided that elections shouldn't be held in May because there could be potential contention between election campaigning and fire, flood, and drought season. So they moved elections to October instead of May. But instead of staying within the bounds of the 4-year term they were actually elected to serve for and holding the next election in October 2026, they alone, as the party in power, decided to extend their own term of office beyond their elected 4-year term by staging the next provincial election for October 2027. instead of the May 2027.
Right. Okay. I wasn't familiar with that. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure a lot of people are oblivious to that because the announcement about moving the elections to May to October happened a little while ago, and they set up the grounds, these reasons for doing it.
Yeah.
But again,
right.
when we had our election, they were elected for a 4-year term, not beyond that. And to stay within that 4-year term, we should be having an election in October 2026. And that would mean all the politicians could campaign on however they feel about these ridiculous referendum questions that are coming
That could
up.
be the ballot question. That could have been the ballot question, I suppose, right?
Well, politicians can campaign on those issues, and they would get voted in or out based on those issues. So that's what's truly frustrating for me is I can't believe that this government can just go ahead and extend their own term of office. It's like pigs at the trough, in my opinion. They're just extending their own term of office beyond what they were elected to serve for. But hey, thanks for listening to me.
Thank you. Yeah, we've already lined up some pretty good people for our Focus Alberta panel next week. You don't want to miss that. There's, as I said earlier in the week, it's going to be a long, hot summer of Alberta politics and lots of separation talk. Whether you like it or not, you got to get used to hearing it. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, it's a Friday free-for-all Talkback. Again, lots of news on the Alberta separation front this week. I mentioned the Premier Smith said it would cost $400 billion to set up an independent Alberta, and then maybe 25, maybe $50 billion a year in ongoing costs. An early estimate. Leger poll ran in the Post media papers. The National Post has this. Fewer than half of Albertans are certain they would continue living in their newly independent province should it separate from Canada. 39% of respondents said they would continue to live in my new independent country in the case of separation. 38% said they would move elsewhere in Canada. 19% said they weren't sure, and the remaining 2% said they would move to another country altogether. Only 39% are certain to stay if Alberta leaves Canada. Okay? 39%. I don't know. Can you make up a go of it in Alberta, be as wealthy as you say you're going to be if you lose, say, 40% of your population? I'm just throwing it out there. Wade in Sylvan Lake thinks just more riches to go around for the rest of us. And then we've been reporting on this all day at 660 News Radio in Calgary. Support for Alberta separation has declined since the beginning of 2026, according to an Ipsos poll for Global News. 72% would check the box to remain in Canada. 72%, the remainder undecided. 19% of Albertans said they would vote this fall to hold a separate binding referendum on separation. 19% for holding the binding referendum, 72% on the Remain side. So 1 in 5 say, according to this poll from Ipsos, want to go to the next step and have a second referendum. The referendum isn't until the fall. A lot can change between now and then, I suppose, but I don't know. You look at a number like that, 19%, doesn't look like winning conditions, I would say, for the pro-independence movement. Let's go back to Calgary. Matt is there. Hello, Matt.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
Very good, Matt. Thank you.
Happy Friday.
What's on your
it's
mind?
Nice sunny weather here.
Yeah, it's pretty nice here, too. It's been nice here all week. Can't complain, although where I live just north of Ottawa. We have a fire ban in effect, so no campfires, no open
camping,
fires.
Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can go camping, you just can't have a campfire. That's all. So where's the fun in that?
Well, that's fair. Too
And
dry.
the flies are bad. The flies are really bad. Are the flies bad there?
No, not yet.
Not yet, eh? Okay.
I haven't gone camping yet, but yeah. So you know what? I think what it is there's never like people inside of any country in this world, nobody's ever always satisfied. Like the general population, they always want more control over their future. Every group of people, they can see their government wasting money left and right. This is common, right? And so I think like the Albertans, I think like what I'm worried about is they have too many people here. They have the idea that, you know, if we separate from Canada, then you can get in this kind of nimble little boat and we can navigate our future with more freedom and more control. You know, this kind of, oh, we could be independent. Dude, I'm telling you, I studied politics and economics and history. The smaller your country is, and the more it relies on a single source of income, like oil and gas especially, the weaker your country becomes, man. Like, that's been proven hundreds of times over and over in history. But, so, you know, like, as part of Canada, Alberta has the ability to, like, secure and leverage its larger economic ties, right? So in good years, we can keep part of our oil money, and in bad years, we can get a little help from the rest of the country. People kind of forget that, I feel. I also, now this is a bit of a conspiracy theory, but the United States has a very long history of kind of influencing much weaker, smaller regions of the world, smaller countries, to do kind of like these, you know, revolutions from the inside, and then they get people thinking that it's their own idea to do that, right? So
you're right.
I can't help but believe that powerful American corporations that, you know, are good friends with our large Alberta oil companies aren't given millions and millions of dollars of social media and get stirring around the pot, you know, being shit disturbers, sorry for my language, but to get people to think that this is their idea, that, you know, they're gonna, that we're gonna have more control. But I'm telling you, the smaller the country is, smaller number of people. The reason that Canada doesn't have as much power now is because we have too few people, right? The reason that we can't negotiate one for one with the United States is because our economy is not as big as the United States. That's our problem. You know, and then you take that and you accelerate that by 1,000,000 times if you're Alberta. So you have zero freedom if you leave Canada.
Yeah, but you would agree with me that your immigration policy has to, I don't know if you're referencing immigration there and immigration levels, because the public is really soured on immigration now. You're aware of that, right?
Oh yeah, I know that.
You know, and the government has really reined in immigration levels. It's cut some streams entirely. It's cut others in half. There's still a lot of streams of immigration. And when you add them all up, it's still about 800,000 people will be coming to Canada in any given year. Refugees, family reunification, economic immigrants. There's a whole, I mean, there has to be a dozen different streams of immigration into the country, but there has to be the social capacity to accommodate everybody. You know, with healthcare, in classrooms, and everybody needs a place to live. The two cannot be disconnected, as they were very clearly in the latter half of the Trudeau years. Look, we got to run. We got to run. We got to run. That's it. Thank you, though. Lots of interesting remarks there. And lots of time to fit you in on the Friday Free For All Talkback here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
If you'll just allow me just a minute or so here. Friday Free For All Talkback, I'm Rob Snow. I'm reading this story during the commercial breaks about a criminal case that is coming to a conclusion in Owen Sound in Ontario. I've been following this case from the beginning. I haven't been reporting on it much on the radio. I remember when this first happened. 44-year-old guy owns a restaurant in Owen Sound, Curry House in Owen Sound. And these three guys from the UK, it's a father, a son, and an uncle. For some reason, they come to Canada. They find themselves in Owen Sound. The son goes out to the restaurant. There are accusations that he tried to dine and dash. And the restaurant owner came out confronted the son, one of these three guys, and the son, they get into it, and the son, boom, punches him, and he falls down, he cracks his skull, and he dies a week later in the hospital. He punched him, he fell to the ground, and he died in the hospital. He flees the scene, and with the help of the father and his uncle, the three of them, they pack up, they try to erase any evidence that they've been in Owen Sound, and they hightail it back to the UK like as soon as possible. It takes the Canadian police like a year to track them down. When they do, they extradite them back to Canada. And today, this was not expected, but today the three of them are in Owen Sound in court. They're all pleading guilty. One is pleading guilty to manslaughter. The son is pleading guilty to manslaughter. The other two are pleading guilty to accessory after the fact because they helped the son flee. So get a load of these sentences, okay? The son who was charged with manslaughter is going to get 42 months, but with time served will be out in 8 months. He killed a man, and he's going to be out in 8 months. The other two who helped him flee are being sentenced to 21 months, and after they're sentenced today, they get time served. So and they're going to be deported. Time served. I plead guilty, Your Honor. Okay. Here's your sentence. You're free to go. And border services are going to deport them back to the UK. 8 months? 8 months? And the Crown has agreed to this. What do you even say? What do you even say? I don't know. I don't agree with that sentence. It seems rather lenient to me for killing a man. Casey is in Calgary, first-time caller. Casey.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Casey. Yeah, good to hear from you.
Yeah, great to be on for the first time.
Thank you.
Lots of discussion around separation.
Yeah, yes.
I'm going to continue a bit of the vein. If we look over the last, I'll go 40, 50 years, going back to Trudeau Sr., but even arguably some stuff before that, the West has always been underrepresented and taken advantage of to some degree by the East through the mechanisms of the Constitution. Today, whether it's underrepresentation in the House of Commons or the Senate, or through equalization or other things, the West has relatively little say in government. And I mean, fundamentally, that's the root of an awful lot of the Western alienation, right? I kind of like, I kind of liken our country as a bit of like a marriage almost, right? Where you have, different parties that are part of that arrangement. And the thing is, the best scenario would be for the provinces that are really feeling treated poorly to get a chance to kind of go to what I'll call marriage counseling, basically open up the Constitution and say, yes, there's a problem and we need to fix it. The problem is that more than half the country, Ontario, some elements of Quebec, depending on what topic it is, and all of the Maritimes are completely uninterested in doing anything like that because they benefit from the way things are structured today, right? Mm-hmm. And so even if you proposed opening up the Constitution, it's going to get shut down. And so like a marriage, if you're in a situation where you're unhappy and you cannot, no one's interested in changing anything or going to counseling, what option do you have besides a divorce, right? And that's the problem we've gotten ourselves into today, is that there aren't any options because the West has no way of changing anything other than by separation. Now, I'm not even sure separation's a great idea or a great plan, but the problem is, what are the alternatives?
No, I appreciate that. It's a compelling case that you're making. And I guess I would wonder, why can't you convince more than 1 out of every 5 Albertans that you need a divorce at this stage of the game?
Yeah. So I've heard the polls and stuff, and I've seen all kinds of different numbers. I admittedly have a limited network, but 1 to 5 seems a little low. I think the numbers of 30-35% are probably more in line.
You think those are more accurate? You think those are more accurate? Okay, yeah, fair enough. That's still a big hill to climb. That's still a big hill to climb. That's a lot of minds that you would have to change, right? Yeah. And I mean, to the Premier's point, I mean, think about this: old age security at the federal level. The supplement to the Canada Pension Plan is not funded like the Canada Pension Plan. It's not funded through, contributions and then investments in the stock market hoping for returns. It's 100% right out of government revenues. And a lot of seniors rely on the OAS. Is Alberta, how much would that cost Alberta to set up its own old age security system that right now is funded completely and 100% by the federal government? That's something to think about. I'll tell you what, it's going to be a heck of a lot more than $6 billion as claimed by the pro-independence movement. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday free-for-all Talkback. Time winding down here. Zach is in Calgary. Zach, hi there.
Hi, Rob. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, Zach. Yeah. What's on your mind?
Well, I just want to, as you know, I like your show and I have a lot of respect for you. But I just want to make a comment on something you said about you kind of, in a way, downplayed the entire residential school conversation as just emotionally charged. Something that was borderline a modern day blood libel against Catholics and Canadians of the past. And I just, I don't know. I think saying that it was just the media was just emotionally charged when they made claims without evidence and then cited violence. I just don't agree with you on that personally.
Okay, that's fine. I don't think, my point would be, I don't think the media did enough scrutiny on what happened there.
No, I totally agree with that. Yeah. No, I agree with that. Another thing I was going to ask you about,
but I also don't want to. I also don't want to sugarcoat what happened at the residential schools.
Well, there's a difference between. I'm not sugarcoating. No one's sugarcoating, but it's there's a difference between acknowledging what happened and acknowledging the bad things that happened and spreading a blood libel. You know that. Like if somebody spread a blood libel, like, in the old medieval period where they accused, Jews of doing horrific things to people, and the response was, well, let's not sugarcoat the bad things that Jewish people did, that would be an inadequate response, I believe.
All right. Fair enough. Anything else?
But we were talking about AI a couple days ago, and I haven't had a chance to read about this AI strategy, but you were saying that the Canadian government wants to build like government-owned data centers, or are they?
No, but it will fund AI startups. It has a $500 million startup fund for AI, and it wants to make sure that control of data is primarily done through Canadian companies, it says. Okay. But right now, with the cloud computing infrastructure in Canada the way it is, 85% of the cloud infrastructure in Canada right now is controlled by 3 companies, and they're all in the United States.
Yeah, no, 100%. Obviously, I don't want all these 3 companies having like total control over all our data, especially, all the things that people punch into AI and all the information that AI gathers, even that we don't say. But I'm kind of nervous about the idea of the Canadian government having all that data too. Like, people make these these agents with AI.
Again, just to come back to it, there's no little indication that the government wants to get into the AI business. What it wants to do is try to create the conditions and even provide some funding so that Canadian companies can compete with American companies in the entire AI space, including the cloud infrastructure.